Okay, this is some of the plywood veneer. This is poplar. So, but this really works out really well. So I'm going to place this here. Put it here. Let's see, we have, pop that in there. Okay, it's in there. Okay, so we have a lip here. So this front frame of the cabinet kind of overlaps, and so there's enough space to just pop that in there, and so it's kind of convenient. So it may be something you want to check on. If this lip wasn't here, that would be an issue for us, because then we would see that unfinished side of the plywood. But it's got the lip, so we pop it in and it looks finished. Same thing over here. So now we got a good paintable surface. We got rid of the laminate. And then I've got the plywood down for the island. And so for there, on yours, you'll probably end up having a corner, like a corner piece here. And then, some trim along the bottom. So what I did is I popped those off. And then that way these ends don't have to be a nice clean cut. So I'm going to put something back over this, something that makes it look more like a leg or something. So, and again, here's a lip up here where again the front, the face overlaps, and I'll be able to take that side piece and just pop it on there. And because this is laminate here, so we'll be able to cover up that laminate with a wood surface to paint, and then it'll be nice and clean because of this overlap here. The kick plate down here is laminate as well, so I cut out wood for that. So obviously I had it too high, so I had to notch it out there. I've got the leg work done. I wanted to look solid, so like this corner piece isn't two pieces together, it's one solid piece, and I cut it out inside, which I'll show you here in a second. But in order to find the wood that was kind of big enough to make all my cuts, I ended up going to a specialty shop to buy a 9-foot long poplar beam, because Home Depot and Lowe's, they don't have that type of those specialty woods, in larger sizes. So I just went out and bought a big beam, and I milled it up and made all the cuts that I needed. So I'll show you the kind of leg cuts that I had to make. So one of them is a corner piece here. So this isn't all fastened in yet. Just try to get it out of here. Okay, so as you can see, I cut it. Just has a good thickness to it, and then just cut it out so it'll fit right here on the corner. So I'll get that in later. And then I just have a flat piece here. So this is a flat one. And then over here, so these fronts here, I'll just pull this out so you see it. See where they have an overhang, I guess you could call it. And so I just wanted to make it look like there was a leg in the front. So I cut this piece like that. So let me slide it in there. And once it's secured on there, it looks like it's got a leg in the front. Okay, after getting the legs on, I wanted to kind of add some more character, so that's how I'm going to finish it out. The legs will be on there, and then all this is you can buy these as is at the home improvement stores. It's just slats of wood, so I'll just kind of give it that paneled look. So in keeping with what I did with adding the framing or paneling down here, also did it here, the side of the cabinets. So that's one way to kind of give it a little update. Is anywhere you can see the side of your cabinets, just kind of add that on there. So I had some leftover little slats of wood from cutting out these panels here. So I use those down here at the bottom to finish out my trim work. So just kind of a nice way of cleaning up the bottom. Redoing all the doors to give them the updated farm style look. So I'm doing this in accordance with the Craig Kitchen Makeover YouTube video. I didn't want to rehash on what was well demonstrated in those Craig videos. I wanted to just show you, how I'm just doing some slight differences, so you can kind of look at your options. Okay, so here is the test door that I did in accordance with the Craig Kitchen Makeover video. And so yeah, it turned out great. We liked it. We even hung it and had it hung for a while just to kind of get the feel for it and everything. And just a tip, my test door was a smaller door just to make it easier that first time around. But yeah, we hung it, and thing is we noticed we kind of decided, hey, so there's like about a ½ inch difference from the surface of your frame to down to your panel. And so this right here, the panel is a ½ inch thick. And we decided, hey, let's make it a little bit more subtle. So we decided to do a ½ inch thick plywood for the panel. So we're going to do ½ inch thick plywood. That'll make it just a little bit more subtle in the transition from your frame here to your panel. Okay, so here's the plywood that I'm using. So I don't see too much texture in the grain and the pores and stuff that you might see on some of those different types of finishing sheets of plywood. So I decided to go with this because we're painting the cabinets. The thing that I'm going to do differently than the original video is how I insert the panels within the door frame here. So what I'm going to do, so what they did in the original video is they put the panels in, but what they did is they just cut the corners off at a 45-degree angle to make them fit within that curve. And then they covered that with strips of wood. It cleaned it up and it made it look real nice. And I actually did that on my test door, and I liked the way it looked. But I decided what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to just cut panels that have rounded edges, and just slap it in there, and just so I don't have to deal with the strips of wood. And I think I decided to do that based on the drawers. The drawers, I don't think I was going to be able to get them to sit flush with strips of wood. So I opted just to take another approach, and that was to make the door and the drawer fronts completely flush without putting, and I had to do that by not putting strips of wood. So I have a total of 3 drawer fronts and 2 cabinet doors done. And so I really like this approach. It's working out real well. A little slow because my template, the corners, the rounded corners aren't perfect, but I've kind of sanded down my template a little bit. And then I found so the shape that I trace out for the panel, if I just cut it a tad smaller, it makes it fit easier. Just some things to think about when you do insert the panel. So I didn't hit it with nails or nothing like that. I just used wood glue. And for the most part, a lot of them, they've just sat in there just fine. But I did notice that, sometimes if they don't sit, what I'll do is I'll just, so I didn't take the clamps. This one's done. But I didn't take the clamps off because I just want to show you where, so if I saw a little bit of gap over here, I would clamp it. In both cases there was just a little bit of gap, and I wanted to bring it together, so I used the clamp to do that. Keep in mind when you do that, the wood glue will push out, you know, because you're pushing that extra pressure. So you'll want to make sure you clean that up. And in my case, I have to clean it up. I have to get the wood glue out of there because for this type of paneling, or this plywood, this finished plywood, this side is a painted finish side, and so I don't want to go sanding it at all. I make sure I have like a wet paper towel just at the side, ready to go for any wood glue cleanup. So put these together. Sometimes your pieces are, maybe not perfectly lined up. So what I'm doing is I'm just using this flat surface with a piece of sandpaper and just kind of cleaning them up a little bit. That works for some of them. Some of them are a little worse than others. So the other thing is, so for this one, it's got some imperfections. And so what I'm going to use is this same board. I'm going to use that straight edge there in a trim router bit, and I'll show you how I set that up to clean that up. So in some cases, okay, as you can see, I have my straight edge clamped on so that I can do the trim routing. So I got 2 clamps over here, and then I got a clamp over there to hold it to the table. And what I'll do is I'll route this here first, and then I'll go all the way with it here. So that's how I've been cleaning up these edges. Okay, so I just trimmed this last one, and that joint looks pretty good. And same with that one, just nice and flush. Now where I'm going to be drilling the hinge holes. And what I'm doing is I'm aligning the 2 doors that will go together. I'm putting them together as if, I was putting them on the cabinet just to see if they're flush. So I want to just make sure that when they shut, that they'll be nice and flush. In router to clean it up, and I've actually done that on a couple of those. I know that the cabinets, when aligned like this, are nice and flush. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'll put hinge holes over here on that side, and then same thing over here. So done with the doors and the drawer fronts, but I wanted to go ahead and do a pre-layout, and the reason for that is because I want to make sure that everything, when I put it on the hinges, everything's aligned. So I've taken off the old doors in this case right here, put on the new doors, and adjusted the hinges, and everything worked out here. In the case for this door, this one was longer by about, I'd say, less than 1/4 of an inch. So I used my trim router to clean that bottom off. I was able to mark it in line with this next cabinet door. So I didn't want any surprises once I got the final coat of paint on and then threw these on. I just wanted to go ahead and lay these out and see if everything worked out just fine. Variation that I want to point out that you may want to consider is beveling the edges. And so by beveling, that means so this is farm style, so it's got sharp 90-degree angles. But what you can do is you can get a beveling bit. As you can see, I got a beveling bit mounted here to my routing table. Get a beveling bit and go ahead and so you just flip over your fronts like so, and run it up against the guide, so you get the guide wheel, and it'll just clean off those edges. And now this is a real subtle bevel, as you can see there. The reasons why you may want to consider doing this is maybe you want that look, or maybe for safety purposes you don't want that sharp 90-degree angle, or in my case I'm painting this with a 90-degree angle. It's easy to chip those corners with that sharp angle. So see, here's a picture of this particular bit here. It's an 8-degree, as you can see, 8-degree angle on the bevel. Now this is the only one that I could find at the home improvement store. I think it was at Lowe's is where I bought this. So if you want different options as far as the degree of the angle, you'll want to look online for those and just see if there's other options out there. I'm going to put the holes for the handles in, and so I'm going to use this template as a guide. So I took the old cabinet doors and just used that, because the old cabinet doors were just using a single pull, but it's in style now to use a handle on your cabinet doors. So I established the first hole, from that old door, and just so you see here, so this butts up, so I set this on the old door in the corner, and then use that to establish that first hole. So that's if it's opening to the right. Okay, so if it's opening to the left, then that's how I establish the hole. Okay, and because I'm using handles, and I obviously had to make a second hole up here, just measured it out and used the handle to ensure that that's at the right exact spot. And see, as you can see, the template's big enough to where the clamps aren't going to butt up against the platform on the drill press. So I just set it up there and push the drill press through after I line the bit up, and then that way each hole is going to be in the exact same spot on each door. Looking like so, good to use a template for this. And so that my template is 7 by 7 inches. I would make it like 10 inches just for better maneuverability when it comes to using those clamps. Magnum X5 Airless sprayer, and the default, the way it comes default's not good enough for the paint that I'm going to be using. So you need, so this is so for the gun here, so this spray nozzle here, so that this green thing comes out, but that's so what that does is it's designed so when the paint goes in, it atomizes it and allows it to come out properly. The spray nozzle there. And then the other thing is this pressure gauge, and that's important because this paint can't be sprayed at above the range here. So they got the green range. It's like between maybe 800 psi, maybe 1200 psi, but as you're spraying, you got to make sure it stays within that range. In order to make sure that it's spraying in that psi range, you'll just adjust it. So you'll do a test run and adjust it, and as long as it's spraying within that range, then it's going to apply properly. None of these have been sprayed, but I got my whole garage here. Just threw some rope across it, and I'll be spraying each one of these, and then coming in here and hanging them. So here's the primer that I'm using. So it's a wood primer. I was going to use Extreme Bond primer, but apparently the wood primer is what you need. At least that's what they tell us. And this right here is important because this is that trim paint, and so this is meant for trim, but also good for cabinets because when it dries to a rock hard coat. So this stuff's supposed to be so you don't have to come back through and do like a polyacrylic top coat. We decided to spray the actual cabinets, and that's a lot of work. So because you're having to tape everything down, so I recommend rolling those, or you'll be doing all this to cover everything in your kitchen. And if you are crazy and you want to do it, just one tip for taping your cabinets is to put a hole in your, whatever material you're using to block it up. Put a hole in it, and you can stick your hand in there and tape, around it. So, okay, so my kitchen remodel's finally done. As I just previously showed you, we sprayed indoor on the cabinets. That didn't go as well as spraying outdoors, spraying the cabinet doors and drawer fronts outdoors. And that's because indoors, maybe I wasn't going the full range of motion with the sprayer. And if you kind of hang out in one little area for just a little bit of time, you'll have too much paint and you'll have some runs. So I had some runs to clean up afterwards, but once I sanded it down and then went back over it, I was good to go. I actually whenever I went back over it, I just rolled the paint on. So I will say a sprayer finish is much better looking, but I wasn't about to tape all this stuff up again. So just be careful when you're indoors, kind of pre-plan how you're going to paint it out. Just think in your head how the range of motions that you're going to do as you spray indoors. That way you don't have any runs. But yeah, so let me kind of just do a little walkthrough and show you how things turned out. Sure. So these, I got to get some glass cut. So the glass was in the previous cabinet. It was a little bit too large, so I'm just going to take it to one of our local glass shops and have it cut it down so it'll fit in the door here. So